Welcome to your video about week 5 in non-Western literature of the Americas and a little bit about week 6. I'm going to bring up our Moodle page and not everybody at the time of the creation of this video, not everybody has finished in the discussion of Indian Tales, but that's one of the things that I'm absolutely looking forward to. I had a bunch of phone calls with people who were calling to ask questions and talk about it, so I want to thank you all who got in touch with me and felt moved, and people that had really good questions. So very good. Thankfully, I have been worried that my guidelines for our paper that is due in, let's see, this is 4 or 5. Yeah, in week 6. Is that right? Yeah. Anyway, it's due Sunday, November 8th. That's when our paper is due. 4, 5, 6. Sorry. Oh, no. Okay, well. Yeah. Okay. That's what I meant. I must have. Anyway, there's the deadline of the paper. Talk to me. It's November 8th. And so that's it. Due Sunday, November 8th. It's a reader's guide to participation. It's worth 200 points. It's really one of the biggest assessment assignments that I offer in this class, and it really gives you an opportunity to be creative in following your own impulses with our assignment. There are places where maybe you were reading Indian Tales and you read something, you went, I can't believe that. Well, look for it, find it, include that as part of your paper, that you searched this high and low. These are the places that you searched and you were unable to find anything like that. Now, please, and I've left some links here at the beginning of next week about the Pitt River tribes, and follow those links. In the guidelines themselves, I do mention the actual tribes, but these are the Pitt River tribes. Now, I do try to keep it broad because some people, well, many of us have interests in indigenous populations all over the United States, and so I like for people to be able to draw into their Reader's Guide chapter and their Reader's Guide paper, where I want you to follow your interests. I want this to be an authentic experience for you. And I do hope that you've managed to enjoy Indian Tales with a kind of, on certain levels, it's got this beautiful childlike simplicity. And of course, there are features of it that are, there are many features of it that feel very authentically native in it. And when you look at the Native American stories that we can find in the Pitt River tribes in those 3 links, if you're looking for them by name, and those names are of course listed in the guide, and I have a couple links. So in some sense, it's an assessment in the sense like I can see the connections there. I hope you will too. I hope that you're paying close enough attention. I'm sure you are. So anyway, I always look forward to the papers. And again, this very big paper that was introduced in a set of guidelines last Monday, guidelines to the project. Sadly, the title of it says week 7, but what I meant was Sunday, which is like literally a minute away from week 7. So it's Sunday at midnight, but technically, anyway, don't let that throw you. And nobody's perfect. So do Sunday, November 8th, Reader's Guide, participation in 200-point paper. So that's where all of this is headed. And you have, again, 14 days from today to do that, or from when you're seeing it. 13 if you're looking at it on Monday, of course. But anyway, certainly long enough. You've already read the book, so we will have spent 21 days on this in some sense. So anyway, just to say that. And why else are we here? Because you'll notice that there are some links appearing in that November 2nd to November 8th. Obviously, where you upload the paper in that November 2nd to November 8th link, you will see that they've got that link there. Now, people call and they tell me about their schedules or how things are going, how this fits in with their lives. I totally get that. I'm trying to give you enough time. That is a hard deadline on that November 8th moment. And another hard deadline is the due Tuesday report about your visit with the writing specialist. So we need a first draft by next Tuesday. Obviously, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it should be finished. So there's that. And so I also have this link. It's got a link to the Writing Center, but you can just search up Lynn Benton Community College Writing Center. So you are going to be in a Zoom visit with them about this paper. You will, of course, want to share the guidelines with them. Also, if you can't even get started, the members of our writing, please forgive me. It's been such a long everything. In the land of quarantine, the experts in our writing center will, they'll just help you at any part of the writing process for any class. So if you're having trouble generating ideas, how do I do this? How many connections do I need? Like decipher this Greek. They shouldn't be. I hope that the guidelines are clear. The feature about the guidelines that is also very important, and I think the link is embedded in the guidelines themselves, and that's our data collection tool. And that is where I get to really not only track, obviously I get to assess that you're writing the paper, but I also need to assess that you're doing the research. And so many of you will be submitting, I don't know, sometimes people submit 15 connections. So the connections that are in your paper are also something that I can refer to in this database. It comes off of that form. And in those guidelines, you'll see a great example of a great paper. Anyway, I'm hoping that you are enjoying this process. Now, I am, of course, a little concerned that some of you could already be finished, too. And because, anyway, I just want you to be continually stimulated. And next week, or not next week, but the November 2nd to November 8th week is still evolving, despite that you can see it. I believe that if I get something in there, like a link that comes in and it appears in November 1st, that it's still for that week. Because, I build this right up to the moment. So more links will appear for that. But obviously, I'm mindful that that's a link when you're really going to be busy. You're going to be writing. I will not overwhelm you. We have a couple essays to read this week that relate to our work. I want to draw your attention to this October 26th to November 1st week. Due Wednesday, use this form to tell us about the connections that you're exploring. In that link, you're going to see a beautiful poem from a member of the Pitt River tribe, and also an essay written by a fantastic Native American writer by the name of Leslie Marmon Silko. And she writes about the importance of geography and, of course, to indigenous populations. There was like no separation between people and their environment. And I want you to pay special attention to Bear and how he always acknowledges all of the peoples near him and surrounding him. And he acknowledges the potency and the power of the natural environment in which they are, and he honors it. And there's that. And so I believe that the Marmon Silko essay really helps illuminate some of those. And of course, it is by an indigenous writer. So I hope that you will appreciate that. And we have some questions there. Also, due Friday, how does Indian Tales participate in the annihilation of Native American culture? And so what I've tried to set up here is an opportunity for you to hopefully appreciate a work of art that by its very existence shines a light on the fact that the United States is being engaged in a 400-year process of annihilation of Native American culture. And I have on that Friday a link to another. It's the beginning of Howard Zinn's excellent book called A People's History of the United States. And that first part is dedicated to the annihilation of native populations in the Western Hemisphere by Europeans. And that's so important. And I think that we have to have that conversation because Indian Tales as a work of art, as sort of an artifact of an interaction, it also shines a light on that annihilation. And what do we do with that? And this is just an open-ended conversation. I think, in that one. I don't want people to get too hot. I want us to be civil. There is a possibility for feelings to come up. And normally when I'm in a class with people, I can kind of manage that in a smooth, cool way. So let's really just be mindful to be cool as we pursue that Friday discussion. So our next couple weeks are, yes, we're continuing moving forward and adding knowledge. We're researching our connections. We're writing our paper. And we're engaging in our course. So I hope that everyone is enjoying it. And before I stop, I want us to be, we only have, how many more weeks do we have after the deadline of that November 8 paper? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. We only have 4, which is sufficient for us. And of course, I don't usually have to stand in front of a class and show you the monkey behind the curtain, which is me. But because this class can't do everything that the other class does. It just can't. I do so much active learning. And what you guys are engaged in right now is active learning. But we do so much active learning in the class. It's mostly active learning. And it's like true learning for me is when we just bump into epiphanies on our own. And that's why I've hesitated to point everybody in the direction of the Pitt River tribes, because in my conversations I get to draw it out of people. But sadly, I'm like, there they are. That's where they are. Get in there. Go and look at those Pitt River tribes. Search them up. And also, if you find their official tribal websites and from their governance structures and anything, and actually the link to that poem comes from the so-called official, whatever it is, tribal website. Find those. So those are where the connections, you'll find more connections. You'll also find contemporary Native American literature right there that might also help us. So even though I say use these 3 websites, you're not limited to just those 3 websites. You can get out there and find, but you have to use your critical thinking skills to decide, is this really an asset as opposed to baloney? And there's a lot of baloney out there about indigenous peoples. That's why the question of representation, who gets to represent the history and literature of Native Americans? Well, the official tribes do, I hope. But there are some kind of really rinky-dink, kind of really homemade-looking, terrible. There's nothing there that establishes that that's an indigenous person sharing their work. And so for some of these sites, and by the way, I trust the First People sites and all those 3 that are in my guidelines. Those actually do have intimate connections to the indigenous population movement. But so be careful. Just as you're going out there, if you go to some, you'll find some sites that there are people who are enthusiastic but may not be knowledgeable. So you want to keep that in mind. And then my last comment here, I'm moving us forward on November 9th. As we move into that week, we're going to be learning about writing in Mayan glyphs. We've already read the Howard Zinn. So just, there's just so much. And I'm sorry, it's my face even here. I'm not even looking at my face. Yeah, it is. It's hard. This is the hardest part because the Spanish destroyed all of the books. They left 3 books. It pains me to start going into the Mayan literature section. Obviously they annihilated the human beings here. They annihilated human beings from the North Pole to the South Pole. But such a painful part of this annihilation is the destruction of all of these books, and we end up, and you'll be getting more links and more information about the 3 codex that were left that allow us to know anything, to have been able to decode the Mayan glyphs, and that's such a beautiful and fantastic story. But again, that's moving forward. For now, for these next couple weeks, you're writing a paper. You're finding out what is where the authenticity in that book is. That's really what we're curious about. That reader's guide, your section, your academic paper, whatever its length. You are engaged in the process of kind of verifying the accuracy of that work, and it's very easy to start to see these connections. So I hope that you're enjoying that, and let's keep moving forward. Have a good week.